Now, myself and Harry are going to look at the best players to consider in Game Week 24 from among the four teams who are playing twice. And those teams are Manchester City, Burnley, Everton, and Fulham. And I guess the obvious ones to bring up first are Manchester City, Harry. I suspect most players have two assets from this team by now. But my question for you is, should we be switching our focus from defense to attack? Because recently, I think the attack has shown signs of life and the defense is as good as ever. But I think it might be just a bit much having maybe two or even three defenders, as a lot of managers do at the minute.
Yeah, possibly. I think the risk you've got with Manchester City attacking assets is there's so many of them that you're never confident who's going to be the ones that Pep chooses. It's always Pep roulette with the attacking players. But I think they've definitely got potential for explosive point scoring. Gundogan is on fire, isn't he? What is it, 9 in his past 11 or 12 league games? He's another player that I looked at and thought he'll slow down at some point. He'll slow down, but there doesn't seem to be any signs of that at the moment. And then Phil Foden would be the one player that I would really be looking at for this double game week. I think he was brilliant against Liverpool, wasn't he? Just reminded everyone that he really is a special player. And I think it's becoming harder and harder for Pep to leave him out. City's fixtures for the double game week aren't the easiest on paper. They play Spurs and Everton. But Foden has shown, probably more so than some other players, that he's really a fixture-proof asset. I think his record now is 13 goal involvements in 10 games against the Premier League's traditional Big Six sides, whilst he's proved again at Anfield that he can win games. His goal is brilliant and he finished with 2 assists. So Foden at 6.1 million is definitely the asset that I'm looking towards for this double game week.
Yeah, and I think that's a great shout. Phil Foden obviously looked unbelievable against Liverpool, but it's just weird how the minutes are kind of distributed in that team. But Phil Foden, I mean, surely he's undroppable. Pep tried putting in Ferran Torres earlier in the season, and I think it's just shown that like the attack is just so much better with Foden in there. But some great value options there, like I said, with Gundogan and Phil Foden. Just looking at the past 6 game weeks, stats-wise, Man City are top for goals, top for shots on target, and expected goals. And not only that, their players have accumulated the most FPL points over that period of time as well. They have 505. The nearest team is Man United with 384. So that's a difference of 121 points. So if you haven't been on Man City the last 6 game weeks, you really have been missing out, because they've been just racking them up. And so I think a lot of people probably have 3 City players. I think the main ones to consider are, like you said, Phil Foden, Gundogan, and if I was to pick a defender right now, I'd probably say João Cancelo, because he's just such an unbelievably good creative player going forward. Ruben Diaz is the most nailed on, and I would say John Stones is pretty much going to play every minute or close to it. But João Cancelo is definitely more explosive, and he's a guy who, yeah, he could get dropped, he could get rotated or rested, whatever. But there's also the potential for him to get a goal and an assist and a clean sheet all in one. So he's one that I definitely think, if you don't have a City defender or you're looking to get one in, he's the one maybe to look at. Next up, Burnley. And they're very interesting because obviously Burnley are kind of one of those teams where people only ever consider the defensive assets, really. And up this week, they've got Crystal Palace away and Fulham at home. So Crystal Palace look pretty toothless without Wilfred Zaha. They didn't offer up anything against Leeds last night. And Fulham can't score. So that's the problem that they have. So you're coming into this and you're thinking Burnley have an ideal opportunity here to get 2 clean sheets on the bounce. And then next week, it's fallen out of my head who they're playing next week. It's West Brom. So there you go, 3 games in a row. I mean, those are glorious fixtures, really, from a Burnley defensive point of view. However, Harry, in the past 6 game weeks, they've kept 1 clean sheet. That's 1 clean sheet from 7 games. I really thought it was in my head. I really thought they had more. They've conceded more shots and shots in the box than any other team in that time. And they've also conceded 9 goals, which is the 5th most. So while the fixtures are great, I'm not convinced by those numbers. So I don't know. What do you make of that? Are you with me or against me on this?
They are quite un-Burnley like numbers, you'd say. They're normally quite difficult to beat, aren't they? And I know they've struggled this season, but they've still kept 7 clean sheets, which I think is the same as Spurs and 1 more than Liverpool. Obviously, not many of those have come in their past few games, but they couldn't ask for a better set of fixtures coming up. I think Palace without Zaha are not the same side. We know how Fulham have struggled, and then West Brom coming up, who have been pretty woeful for much of the season. If Burnley are going to get their defensive record back on track, it's going to come from these three fixtures coming up. I think they've got a couple of good budget options. If you don't want to invest too heavily, I think Matt Lowton maybe 4.5 million. And Eric Peters has been playing with Charlie Taylor injured, who is 4.3 million. So it's not a massive risk if you want to get a Burnley defender in, and I think they could tighten up for this little run.
Yeah, definitely. As I said at the top, I think Nick Pope and Ben Mee are the 2 main ones I'm looking at, and you obviously mentioned Eric Peters and Matt Lowton. Lowton or Loughton? How do you pronounce it?
I would say Lowton, but is it
Lowton?
I don't know.
I'll go with Lowton. Yeah, I never know how you English people pronounce things. You know, you're a mystery to me. But yeah, look, those numbers aren't great, but you would still fancy Burnley, wouldn't you? You would still fancy against a Zaha-less Crystal Palace and a Fulham who just don't have a cutting edge. And then the week after, then West Brom, who are West Brom. Yeah, I would back Burnley. I would back Nick Pope and Sean Dyche to keep them out. So I could, if I wanted to really make a dent in my budget and forget about getting Harry Kane back in the future, I would swap my sub goalkeeper for Nick Pope. So that would be like 1.5 out of my bank. You know, that's a lot to just splash out on a second goalkeeper, especially when Aston Villa have a decent fixture in this coming game week anyway. So he's one I'm considering, but I think definitely you have to be thinking about Burnley this week. And next up, we've got Everton, who I would not be rushing to get as much as I would be Man City or Burnley. The obvious one here is Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who has 2 goals and assist in his last 2 games. And of course, I have benched him in those 2 games, Harry, which is just flipping fantastic. He's, like I said, he's the obvious one. I think Luca Deane is the other one that you should consider because he's very good going forward. He'll swing in lots of crosses. He'll make plenty of chances. But how convinced are you that this is a good time to get it on Everton if you don't have them already? They've got Fulham at home and Man City away, who are 2 pretty good defenses. I mean, Man City is an excellent defense and Fulham have a good defense. So despite where they are in the table. So are they a bit of a trap here?
Possibly, yeah. I have Calvert-Lewin and I have Luca Deane in my side, and I'm quite happy to leave them in. Calvert-Lewin in particular, he's been back in the goals the last couple of weeks. I think he'll fancy himself against Fulham. They're at home in both fixtures, which is positive. And Calvert-Lewin, he's also got quite a decent record against the Premier League's top teams this year. I think he scored against Liverpool. He scored against Man United. He scored against Spurs. So City is a different kettle of fish, so to speak. But I think he will fancy his chances after back-to-back goals. Luca Deane always got the potential for just, I think he's got 7 assists in 13 starting appearances or something this season, which is quite ridiculous for a defender. But Everton haven't been keeping many clean sheets, which is the downside for him. I'm happy with both of them in my team at the moment, but if I didn't have them, I'm not sure I'd be rushing to put them in. Calvert Lewin, I think, could return.
Yeah, if memory serves me right, Everton have the fewest clean sheets this season. So defensively, they're not a team you want to be depending on. But Luca Deane, he's definitely one on the creative side of things. He can always come up with something, and him and Dominic Calvert-Lewin have combined for 3 goals this season. It's been a while since they last combined, but I think those two, when they're on it, and they, Everton need to be putting a run together now. So it's kind of, if they want to be serious about top 4, then they need to be putting a run together, and they might just surprise everyone against Man City. And look, Fulham have a terrible record at Goodison Park, so I expect that one to be 2-0 to the Toffees against my beloved Cottagers. And speaking of which, Fulham, there's some interesting picks. We got Ademola Lookman, who I think is our most dangerous player up front. Kenny Tete at fullback, he can really swing across in. And then you've also got Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who is about 5.9. So some decent, good budget options there. But like I said, we're historically terrible at Goodison, and we're not much better at Turf Moor. It is not a happy place for us. So for me, I'm not looking at Fulham players this week. Have you given any consideration to Fulham whatsoever?
I think I'd be lying if I said I have. I've not been looking in Fulham's direction. I think if you're looking to get players in for the double game, I think there's better options at the teams we've already mentioned than Fulham, I'm afraid to say.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I think you're 100% right. There's, unfortunately for me, there's not a lot here to work off of, and just leave Fulham to one side. That's all. Just focus really on Man City, Burnley, and then if you already have an Everton player, obviously stick. If there's no obvious move to make, I wouldn't get an Everton player in. If you're happy with your defense, you're happy with your forward line, then I would stick with that. Maybe James Rodriguez, actually. We haven't given him any consideration. He could be a sneaky shout. But again, not entirely convinced that it's worth really going out of your way to get any Everton players. And then Fulham, Ademola Lookman is the only one I would say give any consideration to, because he's 5.0 at the minute, and he's our most dangerous player. So how many double game week players have you got, Harry, and how many more are you looking to get in?
I've only actually got 3 in my side at the moment. I've only got 1 Man City, which is not ideal. And the 2 Everton players that I've mentioned, I've still got my transfer for the game week. So I'm considering it, but I'm also considering rolling that over and doubling up on Leeds next week for their double game week.
Excellent. I have 4 players, and I do want a Burnley defender, if I'm being totally honest. It's just about fitting him in somewhere. My backline already has Diaz and Stones, both have a double game week. And then I got Soufal against Sheffield United at home, which I think should be pretty simple clean sheet for West Ham, all things, going right. And then I got Luke Shaw against West Brom, which I think is, he's not going anywhere. I think there's a great chance of a clean sheet there, and of Shaw getting attacking returns. He has 3 assists in the last few weeks. And so then I would be looking at, if I got in, this is just a crazy sentence that I'm saying right now, but if I got rid of Andy Robertson and brought in someone like Ben Mee, which is just insanity, then I would have to bench a midfielder. And then that means benching one of Salah, Gundogan, Fernandes, Maddison, or Grealish. Who do you bench out of them?
Yeah, I'm in a similar predicament. That's my thinking with not maybe getting another double game week defender. I've already got Stones, I've got Soufal, I've got Shaw, I've got Luca Deane. Do I want to go 5 at the back when I've got a pretty solid midfield, the likes of Grealish and Harvey Barnes and Salah. I'm not too sure.
Now, the one thing I will say though is that in recent game weeks, the top scoring player has been a defender more often than not. Just looking through them now, and you go all the way back to, oh my god, I'm looking at these. Game week 13 was Holgate. Game week 17 Tierney. Game week 18 Michael Keane. 19 Stones. 20 Cancelo. 21 Azpilicueta. 22 Wan-Bissaka. I mean, the defenders are ruling this game at the minute. They are truly ruling the game. So don't discount, a five at the back. Sorry, because they have been lighting it up. So when I'm looking at it, maybe I can bench Jack Grealish and get away with it. Maybe, because they're playing Brighton, and Brighton look really solid defensively. I mean, they kept Liverpool out. Although, to be fair, Liverpool are useless at Anfield these days. So maybe we shouldn't read too much into that. But Grealish, I'm thinking about benching. But then I would have a super strong bench. And to be honest with you, I feel like I'm going to get a few bench points this week. I'm going to miss out yet again. But like I said, that's the name of the game. And I think that's I think look, we've covered the best double game week players for this weekend. And you can listen to our entire discussion about Game Week 24 on the Fantasy Faithful podcast. So you can subscribe then on basically wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to the Football Faithful feed on Apple, Spotify, etc., etc. You know how podcasts work. So I'll leave it up to you, and make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel as well.